We've got just 4 games on tonight's slate for MLB DFS, which means that throughout the course of today's podcast, we will touch on all 8 pitchers, whether it be stacking against them, using them as pitchers, or things to watch. We will touch on all 8 pitchers. So it is kind of fun to have a shorter slate. We get to touch on literally everyone on the board and let you know our thoughts on them. Hopefully prepare you for a good slate, trying to build off of a fun slate for last night and parlay that into a good rest of the week. So let's dive on in and get you set for a short 4-game slate. Welcome on into the solo shop. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberfire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberfire.com, here to break down Thursday's 4-game main slate. Lock for tonight is set for 6:35 p.m. Eastern. So you procrastinators out there, 6:35 p.m. Eastern is lock for today. Make sure you get your lineups in before then to ensure you are able to play for tonight. As far as weather goes for here, I got nothing. It all looks pretty good. Temperatures for today, assuming that the roof is closed in Texas, which I'd assume it will be, all will be between 70 and 78 degrees. So no big variance there, no massive wind to note. Pretty easy slate in that regard. So it should be a fun one for DFS. We'll dive into the pitchers and outline our thoughts on this slate in just 1 second. But first, a quick reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed to get all of our podcasts, the DFS podcast here, in one place with myself. We got Brandon Gadula on the PGA podcast. Austin Swaim is on UFC. I've got NASCAR coming out tomorrow for Kansas. A lot of good stuff all in one place. Hit subscribe. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Hey, soccer fans, this season, FanDuel and Captain Morgan are teaming up to give you a one-of-a-kind soccer contest to spice up game day. Introducing Captain Morgan Soccer Pick'em, a weekly fantasy contest that is entirely free to play. The contest is simple. All you have to do is answer 10 questions about Captain Morgan and that week's soccer matchup. People with the most correct answers will earn their share of cash prizes. Head over to FanDuel.com/free games/Captain Morgan and spice up game day with a free shot at cash prizes every Saturday. No purchase necessary. Must be 21 plus to enter. Location restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at FanDuel.com. Pitching preview for this Thursday main slate, Dylan Cease is kind of the one guy who really stands out. He checks in at $10,300. Zach Wheeler coming off the COVID list, he's 95. Tyler Anderson, 92. Connor Overton is 85. And then Luis Gill is the only other guy at $8,000 or higher. He is 81. Now, to me, there is no question that Dylan Cease is the top guy on this slate because, yeah, it's a tough matchup against the Yankees, but I can't find a way to get off him. He's been awesome this year, and I think we should emphasize how good he has been. Cease did not throw his curveball much in his first start this year. And that's a key pitch for him because it's a pitch that generates both whiffs and ground balls. And we've seen him using that more his past 5 starts. And that curveball, that specific pitch, does show up in his strengths. He has a 2.69 skill interactive ERA in those 5 starts with a 33% strikeout rate. And those numbers are very good. We expect those from pitchers as good as Cease, but I think the fun thing is that he's also allowing just a 21% hard hit rate. And that's across 67 batted ball events. That's not the stabilization point yet, but it's getting closer and closer, and it's been really good. He's allowed just 3 barrels and 14 hard hit balls in that time. It's not like he's facing slouchy competition. He's faced the Angels, the Red Sox, or whatever, but the Rays have been in there too. It's not elite competition, but it's not just pushovers in that sample. If you can pair ground balls and weak contact with a 33% strikeout rate, you're a bona fide ace who can beat any team. So yeah, the matchup is tough. The Yankees have a 112 WRC plus against righties, not a big strikeout rate. They do draw a lot of walks, so there is risk here. But there's risk with everyone else on this slate. Everyone here has a non-ideal floor, but the upside that Cease brings is by far the biggest on this slate. So I'm going to ride with him. I can differentiate elsewhere. I think that I will be a bit different in terms of stacks for today. So to me, I'm going to ride the filth, ride with Dylan Cease, and make him my top guy for today. As far as the number 2 pitcher, you've got some more leeway there. And for me, it's going to be JT Brubaker facing the Reds. It is his 2nd straight start against them, which is a negative because it means they're familiar with his pitches. But it's a positive because It's the Reds. And I think we should consider him our number 2 guy behind Cease for today. And the matchup is a big part of that because we have a 26% strikeout rate against righties for the Reds this year. That's very good. But Brubaker is also just pitching well. It's not just the matchup here. In the first 2 starts, Brubaker did not use his curve very much, which is pretty curious because you go back to last year, go to Baseball Savant, the expected WOBA against his curveball was the best among all pitches that Brubaker threw last year. And we've seen him go back to that curveball his past 4 starts, and it's led to improved peripherals. He has a 3.09 skill interactive ERA in that time with a 30% strikeout rate. He is still letting up too much hard contact, and he's walking too many guys, which is a negative. I'm just not sure if it matters against this specific team, though. And Brubaker did handle them last time out. He had 9 strikeouts in 5 innings. He had a 13.3% swinging strike rate. He's at home. So it is a bummer. It's a downgrade that it is a repeat matchup, but we've seen Brubaker be great, not just against the Reds there, but also more broadly in this stretch. And we know it's a good matchup. So I'll happily be on him for a short slate, putting him at number 2 pitcher behind Dylan Cease for tonight. Third is questionable. I'm going to put Zach Wheeler there. And I think putting Wheeler third is a bigger reflection of the slate as a whole than it is some desire to use Zach Wheeler for today. Because again, he's coming off the COVID-19 list, and I couldn't find a report on whether he tested positive or if there was some other reason he was on there, but it was a very short stint. Wheeler was on the COVID list from Sunday through Wednesday, which probably means he wasn't dealing with any big time symptoms. And before he went to the COVID list, we saw Wheeler finally hitting his stride. The velo was bad his first 4 starts, like legitimately bad. But last time out, he faced Texas, and the average fastball velocity, 96.9 miles per hour. That 6 slider is a 92.1. That slider velo is actually higher than where it was last year. And the fastball, although it's still down from last year, it's not as far off as what it had been previously. And we saw the impact of it because in that game, Wheeler had a 20.5% swinging strike rate. That was against the Rangers, who are very much not the Dodgers. So massive caveats do apply here. But Wheeler looked good. And even when the velocity was down, the batted ball numbers for Wheeler were still good. So I think that's a positive as well. Matchup here is super tough. The Dodgers have a 117 WRC plus against righties this year. So this could go awry, which is why Wheeler is third on an 8-pitcher slate, not higher, and it's a begrudging third due to a lack of other options. But I do think he does belong in this third slot, just not enough other options we can feel good about here. So to me, the ranking for pitchers for tonight, Dylan Cease 1, JT Brubaker 2 is the value play, and then Zach Wheeler would be 3, but it is pretty gross. I mean, it's gross after Cease, but I would say I feel better about Brubaker than I do about Wheeler for tonight. As far as the stacks go, Luis Gill may not be the kind of guy we typically stack against because my process in general is to maximize balls in play. I want as many swipes at high upside plays like home runs, triples, et cetera, as I can possibly get. Gill walks a lot of guys and strikes out a bunch too, which minimizes the balls in play. But it's a small slate. And Gill struggled in AAA, so I think we can stack the Chicago White Sox here. Gill made 5 starts in AAA before his repromotion. He had a 9.53 ERA. That was mostly due to a 15% walk rate. That was not helped because he let up a lot of fly balls. Last year, the fly ball number in the majors for Gill was 52%. He just doesn't get a lot of ground balls. And that's okay if you have good plate discipline numbers because a solo home run's not going to kill you. But if you're walking guys, that solo shot turns into a 3-run bomb or a 2-run bomb. And that's how you get an ERA to spike fast and you can accumulate points in a hurry for DFS. It also helps that the White Sox offense doesn't strike out too much. They have an 18% strikeout rate against righties. That's the one thing they've done well so far this year offensively because the WRC plus is just 74 against righties. It's been pretty tough, but with the personnel they have, you expect them to improve. So I'm fine being on them here against Gill, despite the fact it is an alteration to our process to target a guy who does not let up a lot of balls in play. I think that just with the short slate, with not a lot of great offenses to pick from, I think we do have to make that minor tweak. Plus, some of the guys in the White Sox lineup who've been struggling do show signs of improvement. Jose Abreu has a 40% hard hit rate against righties with a 43% fly ball rate. That's very good. Yasmani Grandal's doing some decent peripheral stuff. Luis Robert is stealing bases. So I think they'll turn it around, and Gill's batted ball issues may help in that too. I am just betting on raw talent here with the White Sox and saying that I think they'll do well. So the White Sox, to me, are the top stack of the night. I'm going to put the Rangers second. I think you can make a pitch for either them or the Pirates here. We'll talk through both. And obviously not great offenses, but hey, short slate. I'm going to give the Rangers a slight edge here. They're facing John Heasley today. Heasley coming up from AAA to make his first start this year. And in AAA, Heasley was getting strikeouts. But it came with some middling results, which is something we saw crop up for the numbers in Heasley last year too. He got strikeouts in AA, and he got called to the majors. And when he was in the majors, let up a lot of hard contact, a 56% hard hit rate, which led to a high ERA. The swing and strike rate there was 5.7%. So he starts the year off in AAA this year after struggling last year in the majors, goes back down there. Swing and strike rate's 11.7% in AAA this year. That's not overpowering, and he's not a huge ground ball guy. So now Heasley gets pushed up to the majors. I think we'll see the strikeouts he showed in AAA come down as he moves up a level. I've not seen evidence yet that the batted ball issues have been corrected either, which could put him in the stacking zone. Low strikeouts, high hard hit rate. That's what we want for stacking. The Rangers haven't played well so far this year, but we know there's some talent in that lineup, kind of similar to the White Sox. You don't expect Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, all these guys to struggle for a full year. So we'll bet on the talent here, bet on improvement, and ride with the Rangers as my number 2 stack. I think the most interesting guy here, again, under the assumption I'm allocating 10-3 to Dylan Cease, is Jonah Heim from a value play perspective. Mitch Garver's on the IL, so Heim should be in there to catch. And Heim has a massive hard hit rate so far this year. Great plate discipline numbers. He's a switch hitter. He's been better against lefties and righties across his career, but the numbers against righties, at least from power perspective, both last year and this year, are not bad. He's $2,500. I think if you want a value play, I would go there for sure. I will note, though, you might not need the value just because, again, even Cease isn't that high salaried. The other guys in this Ranger stack aren't too bad outside of Adolis Garcia. So you might not need it, but if you do, I am on board with using Heim for today. Other team that I mentioned there was the Pirates, and I think they're the number 3 stack for today. They're facing Connor Overton, who has some interesting numbers, and he did just perform pretty well against the Pirates in his most recent start. Just doesn't seem like Overton is a real shutdown guy yet. His swing and strike rate across 2 starts is 5.9%. He had a low strikeout rate in AAA last year too. Now, Overton has gotten some ground balls, and he did that in AAA as well. But it's not like a huge ground ball rate. He got 26 big league innings on Overton. His ground ball rate there, 38%. We can live with that in terms of stacking if the other stuff lines up well. So he should let up a lot of balls in play based on the low strikeout rate. Enough of those should be in the air. And the hard hit rate allowed for Overton in the majors is 41%. That's a pretty stackable profile. Plus, the Pirates did just see him, which doesn't hurt. Again, I'm, dismissing that a bit with Brubaker, but I think that here it's not a situation where I'm bumping him up, but I'm definitely okay with that being the case. The Pirates, like the Rangers, are not an inspiring offense, but they have some individuals we can like, and I will live with that here. So to me, the Pirates are a mighty fine stack in third, given how short this slate is. The 2 building blocks in the Pirates stack to me are Dan Vogelbach and Brian Reynolds. Both those guys have good power numbers against righties this year, even with the deadened ball. They are hitting for power. And the batted ball numbers say that it should stick over a larger sample. Ben Gamel, $2,800. He works for 2. So they're not the worst team to stack. Again, it's not like a deep lineup, but it's one we have guys we can feel good about. So I think that it's a reflection of the slate more than anything. The Pirates wind up third, but I do feel pretty okay with putting them there. Let's move to things to watch and talk about the 2 teams we have not discussed yet. The Phillies are not a team I want to stack today because I respect Tyler Anderson, but I'll probably have to. They're one of the better offenses on the slate. Anderson, is good, but he lets it fly balls. The Phillies can crush lefties. So I'll be on them here, mostly out of necessity, just because it's a short slate. So to me, the Phillies rank 4th. I think you could put them as high as second in terms of stacking if you wanted to, but I'll put them fourth behind the White Sox, Rangers, and the Pirates. The only other guy we have not discussed yet is Taylor Hearn starting for the Rangers, and he has better peripherals than the results would indicate. He's got like an ERA above 6, but his skill interactive ERA is much better. He's letting up a lot of hard contact, though. So that's why I couldn't, use him as a pitcher over Wheeler or anything like that. I think that the hard contact probably going to stay, and it's a bit concerning. So I'd rather have exposure to the Royals offense than use Hearn as a pitcher for today. But mostly just for one-offs. If you want to get a couple guys on the Royals, I think that's probably the better way to play it. Not looking to stack them, would rank them pretty far behind the Phillies, up in fourth for stacking. But I think that they are at least worth looking at in that situation. Okay, let's get some dinger calls here for this Thursday slate. The boring one, talked about Jose Abreu and his good batted ball numbers. I think eventually that's going to come through. Facing Luis Gill, who lets up a lot of fly balls, some hard contact. I think that we'll see Abreu get on track here pretty soon. So I'll go Jose Abreu as my boring one. The fun one, love going catchers with the fun ones. Let's go with Jonah Heim. I think that, I think that the batted ball numbers good enough against righties. I prefer them against lefties, but okay with them against righties. And I think that in this situation, facing off against a guy who should let up a lot of balls in play, I am okay with Heim against Teasley. So the home run calls for today, Jose Abreu and Jonah Heim. That is all that we have here for today on this short 4-game slate. There are other slates available. The early only slate, I think, locks around 115 or so for today. So if you want to get in on that, 110, I guess 105 is the lock for that. So if you want to get in on that, do so over at FanDuel. It's actually a larger slate, or I guess the 4-game slate as well. So pretty good offering there. Check it out if you want to dive in on that action as well. Do not forget to subscribe to the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, you name it, you can find us there. And while you're there, if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. If you've got questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your MLB DFS lineups, whether it's for the early only slate or the main. We'll talk to you once again Friday for a more jam-packed slate. This has been the solo shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.